Yes, hi, beautiful people. I hope that as you tend to go through life, you know that you are loved, you know that you are cared for, and you know that we walk this journey together. We're not leaving you behind. And that is why we hold your hand, or I hold your hand every now and then. And you have held my hand in so many ways by giving me your feedback, by reaching out to me, by telling me what you feel, by telling me what has worked. And so many of you have done that. Thank you so much on our YouTube channel, on Spirit TV, during our events, the coach experience, during the our mentorship classes. It's been amazing walking this journey with a tribe of people that are committed to their growth. You don't know what that does to me. That makes me wake up every day longing to run, to come and say something and hold someone's hand and listen and make sure that I take in as much as I can. And the other thing that it has done for me is for me to be able to dive into the presence of God, to seek the face of God about what it is that is timely, that He would want you to listen to. I take that very, very importantly, because as we talk about personal growth, there is no personal growth that is detached from God, because God is the one that wants us to grow, to expand, to evolve, and to be better. So if we take Him out of the equation, if we take spirituality out of the equation, if we take God out of the equation, that means that we can never hit the exact targets or the exact abilities that He wants us to hit. And He is the orchestrator of personal growth, and that is why I look to Him. So whenever I come here to speak, it's not that I had someone say, or someone gave me their issue. Yes, sometimes I answer people's questions in these sessions, but sometimes it's because God has put it on my heart, and I feel that it's timely for us to be able to share this. Now, I have talked about consistency so many times. This time I really feel it on my spirit, because I feel like the enemy is after your consistency. And if you are not woke enough to understand that the only way the enemy can sabotage you, we talked about it sometime here and say that the devil cannot kill you, the devil cannot strangle you and finish you up, or your dreams or your visions. He literally does not have a right to do that. But do you know what he does is he gets into you, he influences you. The devil is an influencer. And just like other people are also influencers, both influencers of good and influencers of bad. But just imagine if the devil is influencing you, he's only influencing you to self-sabotage, he's only influencing you to procrastinate, he's only influencing you by the things that he causes you to do. Now, that aside, we know that consistency is one key ingredient for anyone that is going to make it in this world, for anyone that is going to make impact, for anyone that is going to create wealth, for anyone, because there is nothing like walking half the journey, or there is nothing like doing things whenever we feel like doing them. There is nothing like taking a back seat and just relaxing. You know that even when you are in your moment of rest, for example, I've taken so many times, I've taken a month to rest, or but even when I take a month to rest, I know so many of my people and my crew and the people around me usually ask me, but are you really resting? And I'm like, yeah, I think I have a different explanation or a different understanding of resting. Yes, I can rest, but that does not mean that I'm not going to hear from God. That does not mean that I'm not going to check in with my people here and there. That does not mean that I'm not going to be, I'm not going to know what is happening in people's lives and how I can be able to help them. But I have taken time to rest. It doesn't mean that I should be just sleeping the whole day. No, 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 no. But I'm consistent even then. I am actually thinking, I'm envisioning, I'm imagining, I am willful about what I do. I am deliberate about what I do. Why? Because I want to be consistent. For example, when you break your consistency, you realize that sometimes it's very hard to resume the consistency. Let's just take an example of if you go to gym. If you get a day and you just feel weak and you just say, you know what, let me just stay home. And then the second day and you're like, you know what, I will resume on Monday. There is a way we usually think that Monday is a reboot day for anything. For those, I've had most people say, I will start fasting on Monday. I will restart, I'll resume gym on Monday. I will do. So there is always a Monday. There is always a fast of the month. There is always next week. I know that those things things happen. But you realize that when you take that break that is not even intended, it's not planned for, because if you had planned for it, we would not call it a bad break. But if you planned for it, it's a good break. But if you didn't plan for it, it's a break in your consistency, and resuming is going to require a lot more energy, a lot more willpower, a lot more deliberacy. Why? Because you just have to use every ounce of your energy to make sure that you reignite the fire and the love for this particular thing that you've been doing. So many of us are inconsistent in so many ways. For those of you that are content creators, you can be very inconsistent with content creation. You know that you have to create the content. You know that it's one way. And one thing that that baffles me, that sometimes we know that if we are consistent in something, that is the way we earn, that is the way we survive, and that's the way we thrive. We know it very well. But again, we tend to be inconsistent even with the things that we know are going to bring money into our pockets, things that we know are going to grow us, things that we know that are going to expand us, and things that we know that are going to be a blessing in other people's lives. So I want us to also stop and check our consistency level, and then to ask yourself, you know, it's so easy to be consistent in a bad thing. Like, it's so easy. Just imagine you slide into a habit of bad eating. Like, it's so easy for you to eat junk after junk after junk after junk. It's so easy to be consistent in weird things. It's so easy to be consistent in laziness. It's so easy to be consistent in not showing up. It's so easy to be consistent in procrastinating. Like, it's just so easy. You don't even need to lift a finger. It will happen by itself. But to be consistent in doing good, and this is what I want to talk about, the compounding effect, okay? The small, consistent actions over time are the ones that yield the good results or the amazing results. When we talk about growing our ambition, when we talk about increasing our productivity and accelerating our results, what we are talking about are the systems. The systems are in the longevity, you know? This, you keep doing things, you keep, you know, automating things, and then you keep being consistent about it, and then you keep showing up about it. You know, the small consistent steps, it has the compounding effect that after some time you'll ask yourself, how did I get here? For example, so many times I've asked myself, and this is in the middle of sometimes when someone asks me a question, how did you get here? How did you get to do what you do? How did you get to be who you are? And then I have to think about my journey and the things that I have done in the past. And then I discover that there is only one trait that could have kept me going until now, that I'm not willing to stop. Because some people would say, but you are somewhere in life. I'm not anywhere in life. I am still on my journey of growth. And I don't feel I've even gone a quarter way. I don't even feel I've gone a half of a quarter way. I feel like I am at the starting point. You know, like Joshua said, give me that mountain. And while he was 95, he was saying, you know what, I feel the strength like I am the 45 me. So even me, I feel like I'm just starting my 20s. I feel pumped up. I feel the energy. But why? Because I have been consistently doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, that I love it more, that I give myself to it, that I wake up longing to do it, that I wake up longing to help people, that I long up waiting to transform lives, that I wake up with one thing in my mind every single day of my life. And that I have done for the past 15 years. And if you ask me, I am not yet giving up. I will do it for the next 20, I will do it for the next 40, and I will do it for the next 50, until when the life that God has blessed me with is over, I will consistently be at this one thing. Whether I'm in my home, whether I'm at office, whether I'm at speaking engagements, whether I'm writing a book, whether you realize that I have that collective effort, the compounding effect of doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I didn't start where I am. I started with struggles. I started with saying, you know what, I don't have transport, but I must go. I started with I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I must show up and see how it can be done. Okay? Someone offers you just airtime of 2 minutes on radio, and you're like, it's okay. I am going to move from Chireka to Kampala just for that airtime of 2 minutes on radio, just to make sure that I record a nugget somewhere and make sure that it's on radio. So that, you know, sometimes the things that make us give up, yes, they will be valid. Just like I usually say that all our excuses are valid. valid. They're all valid. Yes, you don't have transport. We understand it. Yes, you don't have connections. We understand it. But again, connections are not going to be made in your bed. They're not going to be made in your bed. Connections are out there, where you go to a party, where you go to an event, where you reach out. There is no way. For those of you that remember my story when I said enough is enough, and I said, you know what, I am just never going to be in this place ever again. I remember the next day I woke up. I would have been that prayerful girl that prays down on her carpet and is crying and is shedding tears and is asking God why, and is because I had done that for so long. Because I remember at some point I even changed church because I felt like I had hit a snag and things were just not shifting. At some point I said, what's the point of going to church? I even gave up going to church. And I remember there's a time Christ Embassy had just opened around Banda, and I used to stay in Chireka. And so I said, you know what, I had abandoned my mother church, and I just decided, you know what, let me go to a place where they don't know me. I just get lost in the crowd. I am not a minister anymore. I'm just going to sit on the bench and just hear the word and then go back. And then I would be in that church. It was around Banda. It was around that industrial, in those industrial buildings. And then I would sit and I would look at everyone, serving God, praising and everything, but in my heart, like nothing would move. Like I was in that rock bottom, and you just don't know how to get yourself out there. And while I made all those prayers and even asked my mother, but why did God, why, all those weird questions that don't have answers. And let me tell you, in those moments, God will surprise you. He will be very silent, like very, very quiet. And so this one time, just like I usually say in my story, I sit down and I say, you know what, I think now I must take matters into my own hands. I don't think that this is the kind of life that I want. I must be able to own my story. I must be able to tell my story, and I must be able to start my journey, because consistency must start somewhere. So when I got to that place and said, you know what, I must do something, I woke up the next day and started to look for something to do. But you realize that when I looked for something to do, that is where I got the radio airtime. That is where I got the first job that I did. And I started consistently showing up, whether I had money or whether I didn't have money. I didn't know where it was heading. I remember so many times at Spirit Radio, when I had rejoined, because I was in Spirit Radio before, but when I rejoined it later, I remember I would come and sit on, the waiting chairs, and I would sit on the waiting chairs, like the whole day. I would sit on the waiting chairs, and I would see people going in and out. Everyone is doing their own thing. There are producers, there are people who are presenters, there are people, like literally everyone knows where to plug in, everyone knew what to do, but I would sit at the waiting chairs, and then I would just go and record my 2 minutes of radio, and then after that I would sit some more and wait till evening, and then I don't have transport to go back home. I would find a way of going back home. But you realize that in my heart, I don't know what prompted me, but when you have a vision, when you have a passion for something, and when you are tired and angry about where you are, you will start any journey. And I hope that you can be able to start, because we cannot talk about consistency minus starting. You must be able to start in order to be consistent. So for me, my starting was getting tired. My starting was enough is enough. My starting was I can't be where I am right now. My starting was just getting tired and angry. And when I got tired and angry, I decided I'm not going to do things like a 20-year-old, because by then, I was in my 20s. I was actually clocking my 30s. Come to think about it, that is how late I was in everything in life, dropping out of school, everything was late. So I just decided, you know what, let me just start this journey. And while I started the journey, I started showing up every single day. And I remember the first time someone left their job, and their job was actually, it was traffic. At first it was music, and then after that it was traffic, and then I learned to do traffic again, and then after traffic I learned to do presenting. I already knew how to present, but there was no space in presenting, so I was not going to go into presenting. And then after doing traffic, I got an hour on radio. After getting an hour on radio, you realize, so now I'm showing up a little more, even when I don't have lunch, literally, even when I don't, even when I am paid, even when I started getting paid, I was paid the money that was enough to show me for the to show up for the job, and I would show up for the job every day. And so after that, that is when I'm just recollecting these things. After that, that is when there's an opening for radio. I do radio 1 hour. I still stick to my counseling because that is what I was very, very passionate about. And after that hour on radio, I remember that is when the NTV, that is when I was called on NTV. I started doing NTV. That is when my speaking career took off. That is when my counseling career took off. That is when, like, everything that was inside of me started getting out, and the people started embracing it. And that is how I started on my journey. And even when I was on TV, even when I was everywhere in the country speaking, literally, I did not have the capacity of saying that, you know what, now I have arrived, now I am somewhere, now, because now my money, I was not at radio, I was not earning that much, I was just being given transport, but everything else I was earning was from my other jobs, my speaking engagements, my counseling, my therapy sessions. So I would show up regardless. Okay, and I remember in that period, that is when I even bought my car. That is when, if I talk about even the apartments that I shifted from like a one room somewhere to somewhere near some graves where I used to stay, where literally I would open the window and there were graves that were, it was a graveyard that was looking at me. And so many things happened. The reason as to why I'm giving you this is to show you that I did not just wake up and all of a sudden God placed me in beauty and splendor and everything was okay. I had a starting point. And from that starting point, I decided the decision to be consistent was mine. The decision to be consistent was not anyone else, because if anyone else prompts you, if anyone else says, you know what, you do this, you realize that you will do, but for as long as they stop pushing you, you will stop doing it. But because you are self-motivated, because you are tired, whenever I looked at my past and where I came from, whenever I looked at my family and the poverty that was a stench in my family, I said, you know what, this is not the life that I want to live for the rest of my life. This is not how I want to give birth to my children and the life that I want them to have. This is not how I want my siblings to end their lives. This is not how I want my mother to be. And this is not how I want my father to be. I want them to be better. So if they're going to be better, it's upon me to better myself and to consistently do it so that I can be able to be a step ahead and be able to hold their hands and be able to help them. So I made a decision, and that was a deliberate effort. So that takes me back to the compounding effect of the small positive actions. Okay? And those positive actions, sometimes they can be as simple as honoring people. Sometimes they can be as simple as loving people. Genuinely, they can be as simple as minding your business. Consistently minding your business, okay? Not just poking your nose around and wanting. Let me tell you, I had all the time to do that. And I mean, I am a pretty girl. No one would not have wanted to have gossip with me. But my friend, I did not have time for gossip. I don't have lunch and you're telling me to gossip. What am I gossiping about? I don't have transport back to my place and you're telling me, Simanyi, my boss did what? Can you stay with your kwara? I also have I have enough of my problems. I don't want to add any more problems. But you realize that that is a choice. Let me tell you, you will find a person that has no coin in their pocket, but they are busy gossiping about a person that is making it in their life. And you're like, what do you want? What do you want? Can you decide? Do you want to gossip or do you want to grow? Because gossiping and growth cannot exist in the same sentence, not in the same person. Okay? Do you want to complain about everything? I remember when I used to do traffic and I had my supervisor would breathe down my neck, literally. You know, this report is not gone out. This report is not gone out. You remember, you also have your own things. You're trying to make a living. You're trying to say, you know what, at least this can give me transport. Let me do it. And you think I would have time to even, you know, do anything else that is outside of that? No, the time that I had was to mind my business. So if you want to be consistent, learn to mind your business. If you want to be consistent, learn to stay in your lane. That helped me so much, that I stayed in my lane, that even when I had someone else say something, and I remember after some time, There's a lady that spoke up. We were actually it was on my not on my bridal shower, it was on my baby shower, my firstborn's baby shower. One of the ladies that I worked with came opened up while we were talking, and they said, when I came to this workplace, they told me everything. Some people sat me down and told me everything about Bahati. And they told me how bad she is. And they told me how Waizeka she is. And they told me everything. And so now this poor girl, I'll call her a girl, she kept away from me. So she would just look at me from the sides. And so 1 year went on, 2 years went on, and I was literally her boss, because if you're doing traffic and you're starting you're stepping into the HR, literally, like, she expected to hear from me, or she expected me to do something. And then 1 year goes, 2 years go, 3 years go, and she's like, so on my baby shower, that is when she tells me, I am so sorry. I listened to other people and I didn't take time to find out for myself. I didn't take time to know you as a person. What I did was buying the stories of other people that they told me. I don't know what beef they have against you, but that I listened to those stories, and they clouded my judgment. And so I used to look at you, you're a beautiful woman, you're confident, I used to love everything about you. But again, they had intoxicated me with all these bad things, and I just kept away from you. Even in the corridors, I would just go without greeting you. And now I realize I have wasted 3 good years where I would have learned from you, and you'd have mentored me to be even a better person. And so I looked at her, and that is when I was like, you know what, in order for you to grow and to be consistent, you must be able to think for yourself and not think in a bandwagon style. Because if everyone else has, they have formulated their own imaginations, they have formulated their own concoctions, they have formulated their own stories, and you're not going to go there to their brains to kill their stories. But if someone is going to come and tell you something bad about someone, and all of a sudden, because maybe you would have gotten something good out of that person, they would have mentored you, they would have helped you, they would have held your hand, but because you've been told something bad, all of a sudden you are running away from something that would have helped you. Why? Because you did not have the sanity to mind your business, and you did not have the sanity to leave the bandwagon and think for yourself. Never let anyone else think for you. Never let anyone else decide for you, because the repercussions are going to be reaped by you. They are not going to be reaped by everyone else. So you realize that on your journey after starting, yes, you're going to meet so many things. You're going to meet so many things, but it has to be a decision, a deliberate decision that you say, you know what, I am choosing to stay the course and I am choosing to go on. One thing that I realized in my journey is that there was exponential growth and exponential increment, and there was a multiplication. Let me tell you, if I tell you about the multiplication that God has done in my life, I would say that where I am, I don't deserve. The things that I have, I don't deserve. The life that I have, I'm just a normal human being. But because I gave my life to God, and because I committed to being consistent, to showing up, do I fall short sometimes? Yes, I do. I fall short sometimes. Do I procrastinate sometimes? I will say yes, 100%. I procrastinate sometimes. The only difference is I catch myself so quickly and I'm like, you know what? Not on my watch. No, I am not going to do this. So I am very deliberate about that, and I can even see it that it's happening, and I'm able to change the trajectory. I'm able to change my direction, and I'm able to change a few things, because you cannot change your direction, your destination in an overnight or in just a thought. You cannot do that, but you can change what you do every day. You can change your direction every day. That if you can say that is the destination I want to take, but I've been facing this side, can I change my direction every day and change it a bit of angles, angle by angle, and then before you know it, I'm locked in the direction, and I can run as fast as I can. And that's exactly what I did. I stopped whining, I stopped complaining, and I changed my direction to lock in to where I wanted. And that is when I found my purpose. purpose, finding your purpose will lock in your direction. For me, it did. And finding my purpose, when I looked in the direction, the exponential growth, I will tell, just like I say, I arrived late for everything. My education, my marriage, my everything. But again, when you look at me, you will never see anything like late. You will feel like I have been blessed the whole of my life. And that is not how it has been. It has not been the whole of my life, no, until a certain point where I deliberately chose to show up consistently. And when I chose to show up consistently, that is when everything started, the exponential increase started happening, because you increase in knowledge, because you increase in showing up, you increase in your content, you increase in your confidence, you increase in your self-esteem, you increase even in the possessions, you know. By the time I took a loan to buy my first car and committed to paying that money and paid it, I did everything being so deliberate and knowing that, you know what, I am moving this tape, and it was very organic, because if it was not organic, I would have gotten so many things. It wouldn't be even exponential. It would have been crazy, mad kind of growth, because it was possible. Because everyone that was looking at me wanted something for me, and they wanted, you know, to give something, or they wanted, and I said no. That is not the time for me. I want to be very organic in my consistent, show up and work for everything that I have. One thing that I promised myself is I will work for everything that I have. I am not going to be given. I am not going to be, no, if you bless me, well and good, but there were certain blessings that I received. They came as disguised blessings, but they were not blessings. Okay? I didn't want free things. I wanted things that I sweated for. And let me tell you, when God gives you those things, the exponential growth and increase that happens after that, I will come back and be able to just elaborate more about that. But I'm talking about consistency, because I feel that in such a time as this is something that we really need, and the enemy is after it. And even ourselves, we self-sabotage so many times when it comes to consistently showing up and consistently doing the things that we need to do. So I need you to look at your life while we take this short break. When we come back, we start right there.